From the towering Wasatch Mountains of the American Southwest, we welcome you to this episode of Undiscovered Utah. This show focuses on the mysteries that surround the rugged, difficult, and sometimes deadly American Southwest. I'm your host, JB, and tonight we are going to share with you information about a national park in Utah that is turning 100 years old this year. Let me tell you something. For over 10,000 years, we know that people have lived in this part of Utah. We also know that the Anasazi and the Fremont cultures called this area home for thousands of years. Around the 12th century, the Paiute Indians moved into the surrounding valleys and told stories about this old and odd landscape. These stories have been passed down from generation to generation. The Paiute word for this area is Onkakuwazowitz. When translated, means red painted faces. The Paiute oral histories say that the legend people, or ancient ones, were turned to stone by the trickster coyote. According to native superstitions, it is believed that if you look closely at the hoodoos, you could see the faces of those who were turned into stone. The story goes like this.
Before there were humans, the legend people, To-when-an-ung-wa, lived in that place. There were many of them. For some reason, the legend people in that place were bad. They did something that was not good, perhaps a fight, perhaps some stole something. The tale is not clear at this point. Because they were bad, Coyote turned them all into rocks. You can see them in that place now, all turned into rocks. Some standing in rows, some sitting down, some holding on to others. You can see their faces, with paint on them just as they were before they became rocks. The name of that place is Onkakuwazowitz, red painted faces. This is the story the people tell.
To the Paiute, the trickster coyote is a malevolent and lecherous anthropomorphic figure that is usually male and could easily be compared to Loki or Prometheus. So what national park in Utah has red-painted legend people that were turned to stone by the coyote? Well, this part of Utah is very remote and hard to access, especially in the 18th and 19th centuries. The first scouts to visit this area were scouts from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the 1850s. Their mission was to determine if this area was conducive to farming and raising cattle. Years later, the church sent a Scottish immigrant by the name of Ebenezer Bryce and his wife Mary to settle the Prea River Valley. Ebenezer was a very skilled carpenter, and his talents would help in establishing an environment for others to move in and call this area home. Ebenezer and Mary built a small, humble cabin at the bottom of a natural cliff amphitheater. He built a canal to water his crops, and then he built a road to the top of the plateau above the amphitheater so he could collect wood for building and burning as firewood. Ebenezer grazed his herd of cattle in and around the amphitheater. He would later state that this amphitheater of oddly shaped rock pillars was, quote, a hell of a place to lose a cow, unquote. Other members of the church that moved to the area called Ebenezer and Mary's land and the amphitheater that surrounded it Bryce's Canyon. Then in the early 1900s, magazine articles published by the Union Pacific and Santa Fe Railroads began to spread the word of this oddly beautiful landscape to the rest of the country. The secret of Bryce's Canyon and its amphitheater was out. But as I said earlier, this was a remote and difficult area in Utah to get to, and there were no accommodations for visitors. That's when Reuben Syrett and the Perry brothers and Harold Bowman decided to build a small lodge on the plateau above the amphitheater and provide a guide service to the area. If it's a hell of a place to lose a cow, then it's an even worse place to lose a human. Soon a small town was established around the lodge. The town was called Bryce Canyon, Utah, and Reuben Syrett served as the town's first postmaster. With more and more people making the trip to see the unique landscape of Bryce Canyon, the Union Pacific Railroad was looking to expand into southern Utah and provide rail service for the tourists. In 1923, Bryce Canyon became a national monument. In that same year, a road was constructed on top of the plateau to the viewpoints where visitors could overlook the splendor of the amphitheater and surrounding area. A year later, in 1924, the construction of the Bryce Canyon Lodge started, and by 1925, this beautiful building was completed. On February 25, 1928, Bryce Canyon was upgraded to a national park. Today, over 2 million visitors from all over the world come to Bryce Canyon each year. The small town of Bryce Canyon is just a short 1.4 miles from the entrance to the park. Remember the lodge that Reuben and his friends built back in 1919? Well, that lodge was built near Reuben's ranch. And soon they had more visitors than they had room for. Soon they added on and called it Ruby's Inn. Over the past 100+ years, millions upon millions have stayed a few nights at Ruby's Inn. We always stay at Ruby's Inn when we visit Bryce Canyon and the surrounding area. Ruby's Inn is no longer a small lodge. Today, it is a complex of many 2- and 3-story hotel buildings with a big restaurant, indoor swimming pool, and banquet facilities. Attached to the massive lobby, there is a general store and a gift shop that you are sure to leave a few dollars at. Ruby's Inn offers guide service still to this day. Horseback rides are a favorite activity for many that visit Bryce Canyon. They also offer helicopter rides, ATV and UTV rides, and bike rentals. Oh, and don't forget the rodeo. Every Wednesday through Saturday from Memorial Day to mid-August, you can watch the Bryce Canyon Country Rodeo at the Ruby's Inn Rodeo Grounds. If you happen to be one of those people whose head isn't quite screwed on right, you can even sign up for bull riding. That's right, you can become a real Western bull rider. Try to stay on for 8 seconds. 8 seconds. How hard can that be? Serious, this is no joke. Understand what you're getting yourself into. They also offer steer riding and sheep riding for the younger folk. Ruby's Inn also offers cabin and teepee rentals and a tent camping area with a large RV park. You can catch the Bryce Canyon Shuttle right outside of Ruby's Inn. So, what exactly is so special about Bryce Canyon National Park? Why is it worth a visit? I'm always shocked when I hear from people that have lived in Utah their entire lives and have never visited Bryce Canyon National Park. It is just a stunning landscape. It's the hoodoos that make Bryce Canyon so special. What are hoodoos? Well, what if I told you that the word hoodoo means to bewitch? Remember the trickster coyote of the Paiute traditions? Well, once you visit this otherworldly location, you will definitely become bewitched. What we call hoodoos are tall, skinny shafts of rocks that protrude from the bottom of the canyon. Hoodoo's thickness varies and makes the rocks look like giant petrified remains of humanoid figures. That might be why the Native American legends considered these hoodoos to be the ancient ones. Bryce Canyon has more hoodoos than any other place in the world. But just a few hundred miles away, Goblin Valley State Park also has hundreds of hoodoos. But the ones at Goblin Valley are much shorter than the ones at Bryce Canyon. Some of the famous hoodoos inside the park include Queen Victoria, Thor's Hammer, and the Hunter. Some of the hoodoos are taller than a 10-story building. The park is almost 36,000 acres of rugged terrain. Within Bryce Canyon, there are 12 natural amphitheaters that are home to thousands of hoodoos. Bryce Canyon is stunning any time of the year. At Rainbow Point, inside the park, the elevation is 9,100 feet above sea level. Bryce Canyon spans over 3,000 feet in elevation. This has created 3 distinct climate zones within the park. During the winter months, snow blankets the red rock hoodoos. Mixed within the hoodoos are tall ponderosa pinyon and juniper pine trees that year-round display their dark evergreen branches to provide a stunning contrast. In the fall, the aspen trees turn to a golden yellow and orangish red colors that make for a photographer's dream. I bet you didn't know this. From Bryce Canyon, you can see all the way to the Grand Canyon. That is how clean the air is. At sunrise and sunset, different parts of the park come alive as hoodoos seem to move and dance with the passing shadows. And don't forget about visiting the park in the middle of the night. You won't see a sky like this anywhere else. The park hosts about 100 astronomy programs each year. They also will guide you on a 1 to 2 mile hike in the middle of the night when there is a full moon. Check with the visitor center for more information. Here are a few places you don't want to miss when you're visiting the area. Places like the Navajo Loop Trail, the Rim Trail, Bryce Point, Inspiration Point, Sunset Point, and Mossy Cave. The Red Canyon is just 17 miles west of the park. The famous Highway 12 Scenic Byway runs right through Red Canyon. You will think you're in the Disney movie Cars as you drive through this section. But to really see the grandeur of this location, you need to get out and hike. Red Canyon Tunnel Trail is where you will get the best views of the tunnels and the surrounding area. Plan on taking lots of photos and selfies. This park offers many incredible hiking trails and unbelievable picnic areas and a nice visitor center. Because of its proximity to Bryce Canyon, most people just drive through this area on the way to the national park. take some time and explore Red Canyon. You'll be glad you did, and it's a lot less crowded. Now, I want to share with you some basic tips for visiting the Bryce Canyon area. With most places in Utah, you should plan on drinking more water than you normally would. This is extremely important hiking in and around the park. Because Bryce Canyon is remote, finding a place to eat can be challenging. The few places that exist can get very crowded around normal eating times. Consider packing a cooler to have in your car, especially if you have special dietary needs. Cell phone coverage is very limited. Take this into consideration before heading out for your day of adventure. Make sure you tell someone what your plans are and what time you plan on being back. The hoodoos of Bryce Canyon were carved out by rain and wind. Before going on a hike, check the weather. The weather conditions can change quickly, and a nice hot summer day can quickly turn into a heavy thunderstorm that can produce flash floods, and temperatures can drop quickly. Did you know that there is a beautiful 18-mile bike path that will take you from Red Canyon all the way to Inspiration Point inside the park? This is a paved trail that allows not only bikes, but also pedestrians, leashed pets, and clean up after your pet, please, roller and inline skates, longboards, non-motorized scooters, wheelchairs, and get this, in the winter, this is a great cross-country skiing trail. This trail is a shared-use pathway. E-bikes with fully operable pedals and electric motors of less than 750 watts, that's 1 horsepower, are also permitted. There are bike rentals in the area if you didn't bring your own. Here is a little undiscovered Utah hint. If you're like me and enjoy a downhill bike ride as opposed to an uphill ride, the shuttle service that runs between Bryce Canyon City and Inspiration Point will accommodate 2 bicycles on its front rack. Ride the shuttle into the park all the way to Inspiration Point. Then take your bike off the shuttle and ride it the 5 miles back into town. It's downhill most of the way. There are bike racks throughout the park, including all the viewpoints and the visitor center. Look, visiting Bryce Canyon is a must. My family and I love it so much we go at least once a year, and many years we go multiple times. Add it to your plans for this year's adventures. Well, folks, that's it for this episode. Thanks for joining me. If you would like more information about Bryce Canyon and the surrounding area, you can email us at info@undiscoveredutah.com. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, and be sure to follow us. Just search for Undiscovered Utah. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Undiscovered Utah. Join me next time as I share more about the Great Southwest. Good night, everybody.